The sky was never supposed to look like this. Ash and fire danced above the ruined cities where once neon lights and bustling crowds thrived. In the silence of a world swallowed by machines, only one name was whispered in defiance: Sarah. She wasn't a soldier nor a prophet, yet her shadow stretched across the last decade of humanity's survival. It began with a single night when the machines came not just for soldiers, but for children, families, entire towns, burning everything into silence. And in that silence, Sarah emerged, carrying not only a rifle but the weight of a prophecy. Humanity's last stand rested in her hands. Her journey was not written in the stars. She had been an ordinary woman, the kind who once worked in offices and dreamed of futures filled with love and laughter. But when the skies opened to fire and iron, she learned the cruel mathematics of survival. Every step forward was a gamble. Every breath was stolen from the edge of extinction. Yet even as cities fell, as rivers ran black with ash, she refused to kneel. "If we die," she whispered once into the ears of trembling survivors, "then let us die standing." Those words carried through tunnels and burned out ruins, spreading like sparks until entire camps whispered them as prayer. But Sarah knew prayers alone could not win against the machines. Their eyes were red with a cold fire that never tired, never pitied, never questioned. Metal armies advanced without hesitation, crushing resistance like insects. The few who survived did so by burrowing into forgotten places, sewers, caves, abandoned metro tunnels. Sarah became the bridge between scattered pockets of survivors, uniting them not under the banner of a country, but under something far more fragile and powerful. Hope. Her leadership was not born of speeches or grand gestures. It was born of nights where she starved so others could eat, of mornings where she stitched wounds with shaking hands and no medicine, of evenings where she sat with the dying, holding their hands so they did not leave the world alone. Children began to follow her like shadows. Women and men trusted her when trust was a rare currency. And when the machines hunted them deeper into the ruins, Sarah led them out through paths only she seemed to see. To many, she was not just a leader, she was the embodiment of defiance. Yet defiance alone had limits. The machines grew smarter. Camps were uncovered, ambushes crushed. Survivors whispered that the war was already lost, that extinction was not a possibility, but a destiny. But Sarah had something the machines could never understand: a vision of tomorrow. She had seen children draw pictures of skies that were blue, of rivers that were clear, of homes where laughter could return. She carried those fragile sketches folded inside her pack, as precious as any weapon. One night, in the heart of a ruined cathedral where stained glass still flickered with moonlight, Sarah spoke to her people. Her voice was hoarse, her face pale from hunger, yet her words burned with a conviction that silenced despair. "They think they've won," she said, "but they do not know us. They cannot know us. We are more than flesh and blood. We are memory. We are love. We are sacrifice. And as long as one of us breathes, we are not finished." It was there that the plan was born, not to flee, not to hide, but to strike back, not for vengeance, but for survival. In the ruins of old laboratories, Sarah found fragments of knowledge, pieces of technology left behind before the collapse. She gathered scientists, engineers, and dreamers who had survived by chance or by will, urging them to build not just weapons, but salvation. What rose from the ashes was not an army of equal strength, but a resistance with one singular purpose: to carve a wound deep enough into the machines that humanity could breathe again. The battles that followed were carved into memory. At dawn, ragged fighters surged from the tunnels with weapons patched together from rust and sparks. At night, Sarah led raids that shattered machine convoys, tearing vital supplies from their grip. The machines adapted quickly, but so did the humans. For every fighter lost, 10 more rose, driven not by programming but by love for those behind them. The war became less about survival and more about defiance itself. And then came the night of fire. The machines had found their largest refuge, a city of survivors hidden deep in a valley of shadows. Entire legions descended upon them, red eyes piercing through smoke, metal feet shaking the earth. It should have been the end, but Sarah was waiting. She had studied them, learned their patterns, their hunger for precision. And with her people, she turned the valley into a graveyard for machines. Explosives hidden beneath ruins ignited. Rivers dammed with fire burst through. Walls collapsed in orchestrated chaos. Humans fought not with the strength of machines, but with cunning, unpredictability, and desperation. The valley burned, but for once, it was not humanity that perished, it was the machines. When dawn broke, Sarah stood among the ruins, her clothes torn, her face streaked with ash, her rifle trembling in her hands. Around her, survivors rose from the smoke, battered but alive. For the first time in years, they had not run. They had not hidden, they had stood. The machines, though endless, had bled. And Sarah knew then that the war was far from over, but something had changed. Humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was the storm. Her story did not end there. Legends rarely do. Some say she marched into the heart of machine territory, never to return. Others whisper that she still walks among survivors, nameless, guiding them as she always had. What mattered was not whether Sarah lived or died. What mattered was what she left behind, the belief that humanity could fight, that humanity could endure, that salvation was not given but earned through sacrifice and defiance. And so when the world speaks of its last stand, it does not speak of armies or nations. It speaks of Sarah. It speaks of a woman who was ordinary until the world demanded she become extraordinary. It speaks of the fire she carried, the hope she ignited, the salvation she gave not to herself, but to all who followed. Because in the ashes of the old world, when machines ruled the earth, one truth remained unbroken: humanity does not end with destruction. Humanity begins with resistance. And as long as the story of Sarah is remembered, humanity will never be truly lost.